And very, very often, Tova, people cannot find that context within a family because it's just a matter of genetic accident, I think, sometimes that we end up having family situations where there's one individual in the family who lives with a disability or with a disease that results in a disability. The rest of the family haven't got a clue. They haven't got a clue what this person with bipolar disorder is living with.
Because they really had no contact with disability, and they're probably part of that public who's learned about disability from Law and Order, the psycho guy on Law and Order, or they've learned in the media, CNN, somebody just did something to someone. We certainly aren't hearing about the success stories specifically around, of course, mental health, but all disabilities. It's always about like the trauma of it all. And for that reason alone, we expect families to kind of carry that stigma because that's where they've learned it. And one of the things that I find very interesting about that particular issue is how many people come to my agency without family support of any sort because their families just don't get it and have spent very little time trying to get it because of the fear of disability.
I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that the person living with the disability is the problem.
Correct.
It's not the family that's the problem. It's the person living with a disability that's the problem. That person is the problem child.
And how does that person become a self-advocate with an entire lifetime of that kind of, again, stigma or shame?
For the individual, it's the family that's the problem.
Well, yeah.
So it's very often changing that social context. So you're not going to maybe find the solution that you need. You'll get love from your family. You'll get support from your family. But you will not necessarily get the knowledge and the information from your family that you can get from a peer-on-peer kind of support network that you guys do at Reachability.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this. Our client or our self-advocate has accepted their fear. They've overcome their fear. They've done a lot of research and they've gotten some real knowledge about their disability, and they have an issue that, for instance, let's say something really obvious, just like a physical disability, and their landlord hasn't fixed the curb. Something as simple as that. I mean, we can get very complex here, but the truth is something as simple as a person who uses a wheelchair and the curb breaks in their house. I know this is a real story. That's why I'm using it. And they couldn't leave their house for months. And finally, they heard about us and called me. And, of course, we got that taken care of very quickly because that was just an intolerable situation. But my question to you is, what happened there? Why isn't that person able to make those calls? And again, we've talked a little bit about what it is, but what can we do to take the person in that situation to a self-advocacy step?
We've talked about the first step of acknowledging that there's a problem.
Understood.
The second step of developing a kind of knowledge base. A third step of using that knowledge base, that information that you develop to overcome barriers such as self-stigma and fear. The fourth step that you're kind of where you're at right now is learning to make a decision. That is to take some action based on where you are in the process of overcoming barriers with the power of new knowledge, with the power of perhaps a social network, a new social network. So you've got this. What are you going to do with it?
Right. In other words, now that I know this information, there shouldn't be a disconnect after those first few steps with the next step, which would be to call yourself or to write a letter, because to me, self-advocacy can be as simple as making a call or writing a letter if it gets you what you need or it starts. Rarely do I find it is only one letter or only, one call. I wish it was always that way or we wouldn't be here talking about self-advocacy.
No, but the idea is you have all this. Make a bloody decision. Like, do something. Don't sit in your house and say, oh, my God, the curb is broken, so I can't go out.
Which is what I'm hearing a lot. And that's why I wanted to talk to you today, because I want people to hear, if that's what you're doing, you're selling yourself out. Because you have the power, as you've so well identified, Bruce, you have the power to then take action in an intelligent way because you've worked with your fear, you've worked with your issues, you understand your barriers, and now what?
And that's what I tell you. We go back to anger where we started with, and anger can be the most wonderful, motivating energy. If you say, I am so angry that I can't get out today because of that curb, I'm going to do something about it. And if you use anger in that way, instead of turning it into self-pity, or saying, oh, my God, I'm stuck in the house for another week.
I'm so mad.
I'm so mad. But if you're so mad, then use that I'm so mad statement and finish it. I'm so mad, I'm going to do something about that curb, that broken curb. I'm so mad that I'm going to do something to improve my life. I'm so mad that I'm going to do something about my life that will make me feel better.
And again, turning that mad into constructive active, not just calling and screaming at someone. Because again, I have to say that, Bruce, only because, we talk about the anger being motivating. And sometimes I get very angry and I might not, I'm definitely a good self-advocate. But once in a while I get on the phone and I might be a little, aggressive. And because I'm so frustrated and the anger has driven me for justice. But I also have learned from my mother, who's been telling me this for years because I haven't been listening, which is why she keeps repeating it, that there's a certain amount of honey in order to get things done. And I'm not telling anybody to, suck up. I'm saying there's a certain amount of honey in how we approach people. And also for me in self-advocacy, one of the most important points is to work with paper. If you want something done, write a letter. Don't just call and leave a message. I really believe in paper, and I think that's an important thing we also should at least allow for as well in this conversation.
Well, I'm glad you believe in paper.
Okay, whatever. I don't mean in killing trees.
And I'm glad you believe in using honey. But there are times when anger is righteous, when indignation is righteous, when it is appropriate to express anger in a way that is, first of all, not dangerous to another person or to yourself. But there are appropriate ways to express anger. And I think it's very important that we not be taught to constantly conceal or repress anger and always try and be sweet and nice when things are unfair. It is perfectly okay to be angry.
Well, my husband's going to hate hearing that from you, but I'll let him know I got permission. So from here on, I want to thank you, Dr. Mills, because you and I could talk forever as we've done in the past. But for the sake of our listeners, we have a few other things to do. Of course, we're going to hear from Paul on the poll of the week. And along with the poll, please do check out our website, inclusionrevolution.com, which will have more information not only on today's show, but on upcoming shows. And we're just really, really pleased that you, Dr. Bruce Mills, could join us today. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing you again because we have a lot more to talk about. But again, from all of us here at the Inclusion Revolution, we'll see you next week.
So our poll of the week surrounding smoking. Do you think smokers should have the same basic rights and access to health care as non-smokers? Please log on to theinclusionrevolution.com and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to The Inclusion Revolution. Please join us again.